Have you ever felt something inside you desperately trying to break free? A talent hidden away while you moved through life invisible to everyone else. This is Jessica Parker's story. A woman whose greatest gift remained secret until one afternoon when courage found her, if only for a moment. In Chicago's prestigious Skyline Suites, a five-star hotel where global elites shaped economies, Jessica moved like a shadow. At 28, she pushed her cleaning cart with practiced efficiency, head down, shoulders hunched. She had perfected invisibility not from confidence, but from fear of being judged. What hotel guests never guessed was that behind Jessica's downcast eyes lived a mind that traveled far beyond Chicago. For 3 years, she had voyaged across languages from her small apartment. It began after burying her mother, Ellen Parker, whose life had been defined by unrealized dreams. "One day I'll see the world," Ellen would tell Jessica. "China with its ancient walls, Italy with its art, Japan with its cherry blossoms." But cancer took Ellen before her passport collected a single stamp. The night after the funeral, Jessica found her mother's dusty Mandarin textbook. "I'll see it for you, Mom," she whispered, tears falling onto yellowed pages. Unable to afford travel, Jessica downloaded a language app and began Ni Hao Wo Shi Jessica. What started as tribute became passion. Over 3 years, she progressed from basic greetings to complex conversations through YouTube videos and online forums. Chinese captivated her. Each character, a small artwork, each tone, a musical note. But no one at Skyline Suites knew this side of her. To co-workers, she was quiet Jessica who took unwanted shifts. To Chloe Winters, the hotel's event manager, she was barely furniture useful when needed invisible otherwise. "Jessica," Chloe's sharp voice would cut through staff hallways. "Room 312 needs a deep clean and the VIP conference room needs set up for tomorrow. The Miles Industries people are particular." Jessica would nod, never mentioning she could recite Tang Dynasty poetry or explain business etiquette in Mandarin. Who would believe her? Who would care? Only Henry, the 67-year-old night security guard with weathered hands and perceptive eyes, seemed to see something in Jessica. "You know your problem, kid," he said once, finding her practicing Chinese characters. "You've got gold inside you, but you're walking around like you're made of dirt. The world won't see what you don't show it." Jessica quickly hid her notebook. "It's just a hobby, Henry." His eyes crinkled with frustration. "The things you're best at might never be seen, but don't let them die in silence. That would be the real tragedy." Little did Jessica know that within 24 hours, those words would echo as her carefully constructed invisibility came crashing down, beginning with a phone call. No one at Skyline Suites was prepared to answer. No one except the woman who cleaned rooms while dreaming in another language. What would you do if your moment arrived unexpectedly? Would you step forward or back? Sometimes life's greatest opportunities arrive disguised as moments of terror. For Jessica Parker, that moment was coming. If you want to discover how a single act of courage changed everything for this invisible woman, stay with us. Sometimes the most extraordinary stories begin with the most ordinary people, those we pass daily without truly seeing. What would you do if you were in Jessica's position? Would you find the courage to step forward when every instinct tells you to stay hidden, to discover what happens next in Jessica's remarkable journey? Subscribe to our channel now. Just like Jessica learned to embrace her hidden talents, you too deserve to uncover the extraordinary stories that can transform your perspective. Join our community of dreamers and believers who understand that sometimes the most powerful act is simply finding the courage to be seen. The morning of the Miles Industries conference, Jessica arrived early. The hotel buzzed with activity preparing for 50 international executives. Rumors spread that Adrian Miles himself would attend, the youngest Fortune 500 CEO, known for unconventional management and piercing intelligence. "Everyone needs absolute best behavior," Chloe announced at the staff meeting, her gaze lingering on Jessica. "And these people expect perfection. Stick to your assigned duties and nothing else." Jessica nodded, feeling a familiar ache, another reminder of her place. As the meeting dispersed, she overheard Chloe speaking to Marcus, the front desk manager. "Put Jessica on the 14th floor today. Chloe said loudly. "That's where most of the Chinese delegation is staying. At least if she's up there, guests won't have to see her struggling to communicate." Jessica's cheeks burned, but she kept her head down. If only Chloe knew. But why would it matter? Jessica had long resigned herself to underestimation. As she pushed her cart toward the service elevator, Henry appeared beside her. "Heard you got the 14th floor," he said casually. "The universe has a funny way of putting us exactly where we need to be, doesn't it?" Jessica frowned. "It's just Chloe being Chloe. She thinks I'm too awkward for American executives." Henry chuckled. "Maybe, or maybe something interesting will happen up there." The elevator arrived and Henry stepped back. "Remember what I said, kid. Don't die in silence." The 14th floor was quieter than expected. Most guests were at the conference, allowing Jessica to work efficiently, occasionally practicing Mandarin phrases to herself. In room 1412, she found a business magazine open on the desk. Adrian Miles stared from the glossy page, his expression serious but with thoughtful eyes. The headline read, "Miles Industries expanding into Asian markets. CEO seeks personal approach to cultural bridges." By afternoon, Jessica moved to cleaning the executive lounge, a quiet space where conference attendees could retreat. She worked methodically, assuming she was alone. Then she heard a voice. "No, that's not what I'm saying at all." A man spoke urgently into his phone. "I understand there's a language barrier, but this partnership is too important to fall apart over miscommunication." Jessica continued cleaning, trying not to eavesdrop, but the man's voice grew distressed. "Hello? Are you still there? Can anyone translate? This is ridiculous. I need someone who speaks Chinese right now." Through the door crack, Jessica saw a tall man pacing suit jacket, discarded sleeves rolled up. She recognized him from the magazine Adrian Miles himself. "I'm losing the most important contract of the quarter because no one in this entire hotel speaks Mandarin," he muttered, running a hand through his hair. Jessica froze, heart pounding. She could help, but approaching Adrian Miles, drawing attention to herself, made her palms sweat. What if she made a mistake? What if her pronunciation wasn't perfect? What if he laughed at her presumption? Henry's words echoed, "Don't let them die in silence." For 3 years, she'd carried her mother's dreams. For 3 years, she'd hidden her abilities, convinced they weren't good enough. And now, beyond that door was a moment that aligned perfectly with her hidden talent. Jessica stood paralyzed between two forces, the lifetime habit of making herself small and the sudden desire to be brave just once. Adrian was practically shouting, "Now please, if there's anyone who can translate, this is urgent. The Young Corporation call is about to drop, and we've spent months on this deal." Jessica took a deep breath, then another. Her hand trembled, reaching for the door. "I can't," she whispered. "I just can't." She turned away, ready to disappear down the hallway as thousands of times before. But seeing her reflection in the polished elevator doors, small, hunched, fading, she suddenly saw her mother's face filled with dreams never pursued. Before she could reconsider, Jessica turned back. Her feet carried her forward, as if possessed by a will stronger than fear. "Excuse me." She said, her voice so soft Adrian didn't hear her. She cleared her throat and tried again. "Excuse me, Mr. Miles, I speak Chinese. I could help if you want." Adrian turned, surprise evident as he took in her housekeeping uniform, the cart visible behind her. For a moment, Jessica thought he might dismiss her, but desperation won over skepticism. "You speak Mandarin?" he asked uncertainly. Jessica nodded, mouth dry. "Yes, I can translate for you if you'd like." Adrian hesitated briefly before extending the phone. "It's on speaker. The Jung Corporation CEO is calling from Shanghai. We're discussing final terms for a manufacturing partnership, but something's been lost in translation." Jessica's hands shook taking the phone. But when she began speaking Mandarin, everything changed. Her voice grew stronger, confident, the tones flowing naturally as she introduced herself and explained the situation. The surprised voice from Shanghai was rapid and formal, but Jessica understood every word, nodding as she listened. For 15 minutes, Jessica translated complex business terms between Adrian and Mr. Jung. The misunderstanding was clarified. Tensions eased. Even laughter emerged as cultural nuances were properly explained. As the call concluded successfully, Jessica handed back the phone, suddenly aware of what she'd done. She had stepped out of the shadows, made herself visible, and now Adrian Miles was looking at her, really looking at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "I'm sorry for interrupting," she said quickly, backing toward the door. "I should get back to work." "Wait," Adrian said, but Jessica was already retreating, her face burning with self-consciousness. "Thank you," he called after her, but she was gone, hurrying down service stairs rather than waiting for the elevator. For the rest of her shift, Jessica alternated between exhilaration and terror. She had done it. For 15 precious minutes, she had been more than invisible. She'd been valuable, capable, needed. But as she finished her shift, reality settled back. Tomorrow she would return to being just Jessica, the cleaner. The moment would fade. Life would continue as before. Or so she thought, until she found Henry waiting at the employee exit, a knowing smile crinkling his face. "Heard something interesting happened upstairs today?" he said casually. Jessica tensed. "Who told you?" "Nobody needed to. It's all over your face." Henry chuckled. "The question is, now that you've let that light shine for a minute, are you ready for what comes next?" "Nothing's coming next," Jessica insisted, pulling her coat tighter. "It was just a one-time thing." Henry shook his head, eyes twinkling with something like pride. "Kid, when you strike a match in a dark room, people notice. You just lit yourself up for the whole world to see." As Jessica walked to the bus stop, she couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had shifted beneath her ordinary life. For the first time in years, she felt both terrified and alive. She had no way of knowing that upstairs Adrian Miles was making a phone call that would change everything. "Yes," he said, watching the Chicago skyline from his suite. "I need information about one of your employees, a housekeeper who speaks fluent Mandarin. I believe I found something extraordinary hiding in plain sight." Morning arrived with the sense of unreality. Jessica had barely slept, replaying yesterday's events, alternating between pride in her momentary courage and anxiety about consequences. What if she had overstepped? What if Adrian had complained? To her surprise, everything seemed unnervingly normal. No one mentioned the incident. Even Chloe treated her with the usual dismissive attitude. "14th floor again?" Chloe said, barely glancing at Jessica. "And the Miles Industries people have requested their conference room be prepared by noon for a meeting. Make sure everything is immaculate." Jessica nodded, relief washing over her. Perhaps Adrian hadn't mentioned the interaction. Perhaps it had meant nothing to him, just a convenient solution to a temporary problem. As she worked, Jessica tried convincing herself that yesterday's bravery was an anomaly, a brief departure from safe invisibility. Yet something had changed inside her, a small flame refusing to be extinguished. While cleaning the mirror in room 1409, she caught sight of herself and paused. For the first time in years, she really looked at her reflection, not just checking for smudges, but seeing the person staring back. Her mother's eyes looked back, filled with a question Jessica couldn't quite answer. "It doesn't change anything," she told her reflection. "One moment doesn't change a life." But as the words left her mouth, they felt hollow. Deep down, Jessica knew some moments, rare as they might be, held the power to change everything. At 11:45, Jessica arrived at the conference room to prepare for the meeting. She worked efficiently, arranging notepads, filling water pitchers, adjusting chairs. As she finished, Chloe entered with 2 senior hotel managers. "Good, you're almost done," Chloe said critically. "The Miles Industries executive team will be here any minute. I need you too." The door opened, and Adrian Miles walked in with 2 assistants. The hotel managers straightened, professional smiles appearing. "Mr. Miles," one began, "we trust everything has been satisfactory." Adrian nodded politely, but seemed distracted, his eyes moving past them until landing on Jessica, who was trying to make herself invisible near the service door. "Actually," he said, "there is something specific I wanted to discuss." Jessica's heart dropped. Here it was, the complaint, the reprimand for stepping out of her place. "I had an interesting experience yesterday," Adrian continued, gaze fixed on Jessica. "One of your employees saved a multi-million-dollar deal through an extraordinary display of linguistic skill. The hotel managers exchanged confused glances. "I'm sorry, Mr. Miles," the senior manager said. "I'm not aware of any staff providing translation services. We have a professional service we can call when needed." "You weren't aware," Adrian replied, "because the person who helped me wasn't from your translation service. She was from your housekeeping staff." All eyes turned to Jessica, who wished the floor would swallow her whole. Chloe gave a dismissive laugh. "There must be some mistake. Our housekeeping staff doesn't—" "Jessica," Adrian interrupted, addressing her directly. "That is your name, correct?" Jessica nodded, unable to find her voice. "Would you mind demonstrating your Chinese language skills again? Perhaps translate something I say to verify for your management." The room fell silent, all eyes on Jessica. This was her feared moment being put on display, judged, found wanting. Her instinct screamed to run, to hide, to deny everything. But something stronger held her in place. Perhaps the memory of those 15 minutes when she had been more than invisible, when her voice had mattered. Yes, I can do that," she managed, voice barely audible. Adrian spoke several sentences about business expansion and cultural exchange. With each word Jessica translated into fluid Mandarin, the expressions around her transformed from skepticism to surprise to astonishment. When she finished, Adrian smiled. "Perfect translation, better than many professionals I've hired." Chloe's face had drained of color. "I had no idea," she stammered, shooting Jessica a look mingling shock with resentment. "Clearly," Adrian replied coolly. He turned back to Jessica. "How long have you been studying Mandarin?" 3 years, sir. Self-taught." She nodded. "Remarkable," Adrian said admiringly. "And why haven't you pursued this professionally? With your skill, you could be working as a translator or language specialist." The question hung heavily. Why was she cleaning rooms when she could do so much more? It was the question Jessica had buried deep inside. "I never thought I was good enough." She admitted the truth, painful in its simplicity. "And I didn't have credentials or connections. It was just something I did for myself." Adrian nodded as if reaching a decision. "I have a proposition for you. My company is expanding into Asian markets, particularly China. We need people who understand not just language but communication nuances, people with natural ability and dedication." Jessica stared, uncomprehending. "I'd like to offer you a position," Adrian continued. "Initially as a cultural liaison and translator for our upcoming Shanghai negotiations. If that goes well, we can discuss a permanent role with Miles Industries." The room seemed to tilt. This couldn't be happening. Things like this didn't happen to people like her. "But I'm just she began. "A remarkably talented individual who has been underestimated," Adrian finished. "Including by yourself, it seems." Chloe stepped forward, her professional mask in place. "Mr. Miles, while Jessica's hidden talent is impressive, there are protocols. She has no formal training, no degree, no corporate experience. Perhaps we could arrange a professional translator instead, someone more suitable for your executive environment." The implication hung in the air. Jessica wasn't the right kind of person for Adrian's world. She belonged behind a cleaning cart. Jessica felt herself shrinking, the familiar weight of inadequacy pressing down. Chloe was right. Who was she to think she could step into such a role? But then Adrian spoke, cutting through Jessica's spiral of self-doubt. "Miss Winters isn't it?" He addressed Chloe directly. "Let me ask you something. Yesterday, when the call came from Shanghai, where were your professional translators? Where was anyone willing to step forward and help?" Chloe had no answer. "Jessica was the only person who combined ability with initiative," Adrian continued. "She saw a need and had the courage to fill it despite obvious personal discomfort. That's exactly the kind of person I want representing my company." He turned back to Jessica, his expression softening. "Of course the decision is yours. This would be a significant change, and I understand if you need time to consider." Time seemed to stand still as Jessica stood at the crossroads of her life. Before her stretched 2 paths, the familiar road of invisibility, of safety and smallness, and the terrifying, exhilarating unknown of stepping into her full potential. She thought of her mother who died with dreams unfulfilled, of Henry's words about not dying in silence, of the person glimpsed in the mirror that morning, someone with her mother's eyes and untapped courage. "I don't need time," Jessica said, her voice steadier than expected. "I would be honored to accept your offer." The words hung irrevocable. Jessica had stepped off the edge of her small, safe world into freefall. Adrian smiled. "Excellent. We'll handle details with your management. I'd like you to join our strategy session this afternoon if possible." The senior hotel manager, quickly adapting, nodded enthusiastically. Of course, we'd be happy to release Jessica from her duties immediately. Chloe's face flushed with barely contained frustration. But what about her responsibilities here? We're already short-staffed, and replacing her on such short notice will be challenging, but manageable. The manager cut in smoothly. "We're all delighted for Jessica, aren't we, Miss Winters?" Chloe's smile was tight. Of course, how fortunate for her. As the group dispersed to make arrangements, Jessica found herself alone with Adrian. "Thank you," she said, still processing everything. "I don't understand why you'd take a chance on someone like me." Adrian studied her curiously. "Someone like you? You mean someone who mastered a complex language through discipline and stepped forward when it counted? I don't take chances on people like that. I invest in them." Before Jessica could respond, Chloe returned all business. "Jessica, you'll need to return your uniform and collect your things," she said, then quieter. "Quite the Cinderella story, isn't it? Just remember, when the clock strikes midnight, not everyone keeps the glass slipper." 2 days ago, those words would have stung, but Jessica had changed. "Thanks for your concern, Chloe," she replied calmly, "but I think I'll decide what world I'm cut out for." 3 hours later, Jessica sat at the Miles Industries strategy table, dressed in a borrowed skirt and blouse, not a uniform, but not quite executive attire either. She listened carefully, unsure when or if to speak. Then Adrian turned to her. "Jessica, you've been quiet. What's your perspective?" Every eye turned to her. Jessica could stay safe or speak up. "I think the strategy misses key cultural elements," she began, her voice steadying. "In Chinese, business relationships come first. Leading with efficiency might come off as transactional." She spoke of face-saving, indirect communication, and the value of patience. As she spoke, heads nodded. Adrian watched her with approval. By the meeting's end, she had shifted from silent observer to valued contributor. Miranda, Adrian's chief of staff, approached afterward. "We're finalizing Shanghai. You'll need a passport. Do you have one?" Jessica shook her head. "I've never left Illinois." Miranda didn't blink. "We'll expedite it. Adrian says you're essential." Essential. The word echoed in her mind as she exited the hotel, this time through the grand lobby, not the service hallway. The city outside looked different, brighter, possible. At the bus stop, Henry was waiting. "Heard there was some excitement upstairs," he said, grinning. "Something about a housekeeper becoming essential." Jessica smiled. "How do you always know?" "I pay attention," Henry said, "to everyone." She hesitated. "I'm scared. What if I'm not what they think I am?" Henry nodded. "Fear and excitement feel the same. The only difference is the story you tell yourself." He looked at her. "So what's your story, Jessica Parker? That you're lucky, or that you're finally becoming who you were always meant to be?" As the bus approached, he gently nudged her forward. "Some lights once lit don't go out." On the ride home, Jessica caught her reflection. No longer hunched or hiding, she sat tall, facing the future. And for the first time in years, she felt something powerful and unfamiliar: hope. The next 3 weeks were a blur of training. Jessica juggled crash courses in business Mandarin practice and corporate etiquette. Adrian had assigned her to work closely with his chief of staff, Miranda, a sharp, composed woman who, to Jessica's surprise, was patient and encouraging. "You're picking this up faster than most MBAs," Miranda said one day. "It's like you've been preparing for this your whole life." Maybe she had been. The language she once learned to honor her mother had become a bridge to her future. The day before departure, Jessica visited her mother's grave. "I'm going to see the world for both of us now, Mom," she whispered, placing fresh flowers at the headstone. That night, a message lit up her phone. Lobby bar, perhaps one farewell drink. Henry sat at the bar out of uniform for once. "Look at you," he said warmly. "You carry yourself differently now." Jessica smoothed her blazer. "It still feels like dress-up, like someone's going to realize I don't belong." "That feeling never completely goes away," Henry said. "Some people are just taught from birth to ignore it." As they shared a quiet moment, Jessica asked, "Why did you believe in me?" Henry's voice softened. "Because 30 years ago I was you. Different story, same fear. I missed chances. I still regret it. Helping you. Maybe it's my way of changing that." Jessica smiled. "It's not too late for you either." Henry chuckled. "Actually, I have an interview. Head of security at the art museum. Watching you reminded me there's still time for one more adventure." As they parted, he handed her a worn book of Chinese proverbs. "Found this years ago. Couldn't read it, but figured it might mean something to you now." The next morning at O'Hare, Jessica joined the Miles Industries team, her heart racing. Boarding was interrupted by a familiar voice. Chloe, now joining the trip as a hotel liaison, offered a cool smile. Hotel management thought it best someone experienced represented Skyline. Adrian's eyes narrowed. "I wasn't aware of this addition." Jessica kept quiet, rattled but composed. During the 14-hour flight, doubts crept in. Could she truly belong at that table? Or was she just a translator in a borrowed suit? Shanghai's skyline dazzled and overwhelmed her. At the luxurious hotel, old instincts kicked in as she unconsciously assessed the room's cleanliness. The line between who she was and who she was becoming blurred. The next morning, Miranda came to escort her to Adrian. Jessica feared the worst, but instead found him calm. "Do you know why I brought you here?" he asked. "Because I speak Chinese." Adrian shook his head. "I have a dozen translators. I chose you because when others froze, you stepped forward. That kind of courage can't be taught." In the negotiation room, Jessica steadied herself. Mr. Jung greeted her in Mandarin, his warmth genuine. "So you're the voice from the phone. Adrian told me your story. Impressive," Jessica responded confidently. Throughout the meeting, she became more than a translator. She bridged cultures, diffused tensions, and explained nuance no app could replicate. By day 3, her presence was essential. Even Chloe had to acknowledge her. "You're doing better than I expected," she said. "But let's see how long this fairy tale lasts." Jessica didn't respond because she no longer needed to. Mr. Young approached moments later. "Ms. Parker, I'd like to continue our conversation about regional practices." The surprise on Chloe's face said it all. That night, Adrian raised a toast to new beginnings and to seeing the extraordinary in plain sight. Later on the balcony overlooking Shanghai, Jessica reflected from housekeeper to partner in negotiation. The transformation wasn't in what she learned, it was in finally being seen and, more importantly, seeing herself. Chloe joined her, subdued. "I underestimated you." Jessica smiled. "So did I." Adrian appeared, gazing out at the skyline. "What's next for you?" Jessica looked out steady. "I think I'd like to see more of the world and not just through books." He smiled. "I think that can be arranged." Jessica pulled Henry's book of proverbs from her bag, flipping to a page. "A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step." Hers had started with the single act of courage, a choice to speak up. That step had carried her farther than she imagined, and it was just the beginning. 1 year later, Jessica stood at the podium in the Skyline Suites ballroom, the very hotel where she once pushed a cleaning cart. Now all eyes were on her as Director of Asian Market Development at Miles Industries. "Transformation isn't always about becoming someone new," she said confidently. "Sometimes it's about finally becoming who you already are." In the crowd, Adrian watched proudly. Beside him, Henry, now head of security at the Art Institute, nodded with quiet pride. "When I first stood in this hotel, I believed I belonged in shadows. I buried my gifts, convinced they weren't valuable enough to share." Jessica's voice didn't tremble. It rang with clarity. She glanced at Chloe hotel staff and executives, some of whom once overlooked her. "My turning point, a conversation in a language I wasn't supposed to understand." I'd studied Chinese in memory of my mother, never imagining it would lead here. Miranda smiled from the front row. This year taught me that our greatest limitations aren't external. They're the stories we tell ourselves about who we are, what we deserve, and when we're enough. She held up Henry's old book of Chinese proverbs. A wise friend once said, "The things you're best at might never be seen, but don't let them die in silence." That changed me. Jessica's voice grew stronger. We often wait for permission to shine, but worthiness isn't granted, it's claimed. When we choose to stop hiding, courage isn't the absence of fear, it's moving forward despite it. In the back, housekeepers and kitchen staff invited guests listened with rapt attention. Last year I cleaned rooms here. Today I lead international negotiations. The difference, I gave myself permission to be seen. As applause thundered, Jessica stepped away from the podium and caught her reflection. No longer the girl who shrank from attention, but a woman who had stepped fully into her light. Later she stood with Henry at the reception. "Not bad for two people who used to be invisible," he said with a wink. Jessica smiled. "I think about that day a lot when I almost didn't answer the phone. Everything could have been different." "But it wasn't," Henry replied, "and that's what matters." A young woman in a housekeeping uniform approached shyly. "Ms. Parker, I just wanted to thank you. Your story really spoke to me." Jessica took her hand warmly. "What's your name?" "Maria," she replied. "Well, Maria, whatever dream you're carrying, don't let go of it. It matters." As Maria walked away, Henry murmured, "Look at you, passing it forward." "It's the least I can do," Jessica said. "Someone once did the same for me." Across the room, Adrian brought over Mr. Young from Shanghai. "Mr. Jung says your speech should be required for every executive." Adrian grinned. Mr. Jung nodded. "In my culture, we say the loudest voice isn't always the wisest. You've proven that quiet strength can move mountains." Later, Jessica stepped onto the terrace, gazing over the glittering Chicago skyline. She pulled out a photo of her late mother. "We're seeing the world together, Mom, just like you wanted." Inside, she caught the eye of a housekeeper adjusting flowers, head down unnoticed. Jessica smiled. The woman returned it and straightened just slightly. In that moment, Jessica understood her journey wasn't just about titles or achievements. It was about visibility of self, of others. The courage to be fully seen and to see others fully. Because the most powerful gift we offer isn't our success, it's our authentic selves. If Jessica's journey stirred something in you, an untold dream, a quiet voice, a hidden gift, don't let it stay buried. Subscribe now to join a growing community of everyday storytellers and dreamers. Thank you for reading. Your voice matters, your dreams matter, and the world is waiting. Let's step into the light together. Subscribe here and never miss another story that inspires.